Good morning. I'm on a roll here, so I'm going to keep it going. More things to talk about with the first two videos that I recorded. There's other points that need to be made, and so I will keep on fleshing this out and fleshing this out and going from there. Um, Last video I talked about agriculture and how agriculture causes war and causes population booms. Um, and the video before that, I talked about how food independence is economic independence. So a critically minded person might look at that and be like, well, wait a minute. You're saying that growing our own food is the solution, but at the same time, you're saying that sitting around growing our own food is causing war. So it's tricky. When we started agriculture, now, whether you believe it was scientific, whether you believe aliens came down and modified us, whether you believe something else, the change in nutrition altered our brains. Humans have, like, one of the biggest or high functioning brains out there. Second, or not second, but, only really having any comparison to things with like dolphins in terms of just intelligence. Um, that is because when we started eating that grain, it altered our brains to the point of where now we would not be able to function if we did not have carbs. I mean, keto is fine, but you're inducing ketosis, which, you know, is good for epileptics, but is it really good long term? I don't know. But the point remains that we can't necessarily go back to Eden. If you want to use the Judeo-Christian, um, excuse me, if you want to use the Judeo-Christian allegory of being kicked out of the Garden of Eden, which is an older Sumerian version, by the way, which one day we'll talk about. You can say that, that was our curse. We can never go back to our wild state. And it's true, we can't. If everybody decided tomorrow to go back to the land and live off of what the forest could provide, we would destroy what's left, because that's the thing, is the natural systems are extremely damaged at this point from human activity and encroachment. There's no way it could support us all at this point. Maybe if there was some serious forest restoration and a serious change of heart, we could bring it back to a point of where we could have that Eden-like state again. I'm not saying it's impossible, but with the current mindset of humanity and the current belief system of humanity, it is impossible. And this is where belief creates reality. And I know a bunch of diehard Christians are going to be losing their marbles going, but this is God's word. No, it's not God's word. It's the word of a bunch of guys that wrote it down and said they were God. And that needs to be understood. Because belief does recreate reality. And if you're sitting there believing that we're cursed and that the world's going to end in fire and blood, guess what? You're unwittingly making it happen. And I don't like you as a result. And you're my personal enemy because nature is my God. And if you're going to sit there and do stuff to actively destroy it because you're too dumb to have any critical thinking skills, yeah, you're my enemy. Oh, yeah, I just said that. I think it is possible for us to go back to our natural state, but we can't do it overnight. We have to adopt some sort of hybrid system. So by that I mean not mechanized agriculture. Fuck mechanized agriculture. It's really bad. We need to go out there with hose and the kind you use in the ground. And, start actually doing this by hand. So we're not using fossil fuels. And have ourselves a small garden. Maybe not with, chock full of like wheat and corn because that takes up a lot of space, but, things that don't take up a lot of space but give you a lot of nutrients. So anything from like garlic to like squash or potatoes. Grow a bunch of that, and then, go out, forage if you can, but mindful to leave enough to reproduce from whatever stand you take from. And then hunting and fishing if you're into that. Excuse me. Um, Now, in my first video, I had said that food independence is economic independence. And I said it in the context of fascism and socialism, both of which seek to overthrow the status quo for various reasons. Revolution, bloody revolution, is never the answer. History is chock full of all of the examples of where somebody overthrew somebody else, and the power struggle and chaos that ensues, because a lot of times when people launch revolutions, they never stop to think about what they're going to do when they actually win. They're stupid. And this is coming from somebody who is, very revolutionary in her thought. They're stupid. And they're lazy. It's by people who don't want to think and don't want to honestly contemplate the issues. And yeah, I mean that, and I stand by it. Because the real issue is that food independence. And until we address that, nothing is ever going to change. Nothing. So how do you bring down the system? Truly, how do you change this? Well, like I said, you grow your own food. And like I said, you live in a way that is not super expensive. So, I think about what is, most people's expenses. Most people have rent or a mortgage. They have utilities. They have food. They have transportation. And, whatever entertainment type stuff. There's insurance. But what happens when you start taking away certain things? We think that we need all these things. I'm not saying that everybody should live in a tiny home. But if you can find a way to get yourself a piece of land and even just put like an RV on it, you'll save a lot of money right there. It's the difference between $1,000 a month in rent and like $300 a month in a land payment. Secondly, if you invest in solar panels, don't believe the hype about, they don't work. Yeah, they do. I lived off of them for 10 years and I had a great time. I haven't had a utility bill in 10 years. Thank you very much. I feel sorry for you all paying bills. So no electricity bill, I mean. One-time outlay of about $1,000. You might have to do it every 10, 20 years because solar panels do, at this current point in the technological curve, do wear out eventually. But it's a lot better than, the alternatives that you have to pay for constantly. I live in a northern climate. I live in the Northwoods of Wisconsin. And so there's wood heat everywhere. Now there is the issue with particulate pollution. But properly running wood stove doesn't give off any particulate. That's when you're not running it right. So, maybe people need to learn how to cure their wood right and burn their stoves right. Composting toilets. Recycle that shit, literally. You can call me gross, but this is what people have been doing for thousands of years, and the only reason why it's gross is because you're so far removed in your lily white city with everything, you flush your toilet and your turds go flying down the tubes down to the pressing plant, the water treatment plant, and you never have to think about it. But let me tell you, you produce a mountain of shit. Humans are, in fact, full of shit. And you have to deal with it. And whether you like it or not, it comes out your butt every day. It may seem kind of silly to have to say that to people, but apparently I do. Because apparently modern humans are so far removed from that, they don't even realize the amount of waste they generate. So maybe you might want to be more mindful of your waste. Not only what's coming out of your bum, but also packaging waste, what you use in your everyday life. How much trash are you generating? When you have to haul it out yourself, believe me, you start to have greater appreciation for your footprint on this planet. And that's really at the heart of it, is that people want to live like kings. They want to live like spoiled little kids who don't have to ever take any responsibility and pick up after themselves. And that's the problem. It's a lot of whiners and it's a lot of lazy buttheads. And don't say it otherwise, because it really is. Um, so if you knock out expensive housing, if you knock, and that's the thing is if we change certain things, like farmers are aging and they're buying up farmland. If there was any redistribution of wealth that I would be okay with, it's taking farmland from these mega corporations and like the likes of Bill Gates and China and redistributing it to people who are homeless and giving them, say, an acre just to work on intensively. That you could get me behind, but not a redistribution of actual money because that's just laziness. But the system is getting to the point where it's almost impossible to get into it. And we need more farmers. We don't need mechanized agriculture. We don't need AI going nuts on the tomatoes, okay? We need people out in the field growing real food. And we need a lot of it. And we're going to need even more of it soon because we do have a serious problem in this country with the age of our farmers and the state of farming. So that being said, if you're a farmer, you don't really have to worry about food. You can barter, you can, grow it, whatever. Which leaves us at what? Transportation and entertainment and like clothes. So you can go to the secondhand shop. You can make your own clothes. You can spin things. You can, actually learn how to do that. You could get a job if you wanted to. You could sell some of your extra vegetables. You could sell extra sheep to go buy stuff. Whatever. I did it for many years. Entertainment, again, you don't really need that much. If you are like me, you're happy with your cats, your book, and your garden. You don't really need a bunch of noisy TV or anything like that. Frankly, it just sucks out your brain and makes you stupid anyway. You're better off without it. I haven't owned one since 1999. I finally broke down and bought one this year, because I had watched my mother who was dying and I'm stuck in town and I can't go out to my woods and I can't go do anything. So I'm stuck watching the boob tube. And oh my God, no wonder everybody's so dumb. Sorry, but really, after spending my entire life reading and contemplating and then coming back to this shit, yeah, it's pretty bad. It really is, guys. And I'm thankful that I did spend 10 years out by myself, as much as it was lonely and painful, because it made me realize, coming back, it's like I'm a time capsule. I'm I'm 2014, come back, and that was before smartphones really got going. It's before a lot of this stuff really got going, and I got to tell you, it's disturbing to come back and realize just how overthrown everybody's minds really are by the Black Mirror, which is what I call it. And the only reason I'm on this damn thing is because I realize that it is the only way to reach most of you. You are that glued into your phones that you wouldn't even listen to me unless I was in it. And that's pretty sad. So, yeah, there needs to be some serious soul searching and looking in the mirror as to, what is really going on. Because the whole point of this third video is when you take care of those things and then you no longer have to work and you're doing the whole pre-Irish potato famine, Irish Scottish family style thing. Well, then you're no longer paying into the system. There's a quote from Buckminster Fuller that says, you don't defeat an old order by fighting it. You defeat an old order by rendering it obsolete. And that's very true. In spite of Trump's best efforts to prop up fossil fuel industry, solar and wind are still chugging ahead because they're making that obsolete. You can't stand in the way of progress. You can't stand in the way of the market. And Trump, better than anybody, knows that. All these business types know that, whether they want to admit it or not. So really, with environmentalists and the left, y'all need to learn the game, okay? And learn how to play it better than these rich fucking oligarchs. Because that's just it. It is a game. You do need to learn how to play it. And if you don't, you're just going to get fucked by it. Anyway, all of this rests on our money. The whole house of cards is bought and paid for by us. Those oligarchs wouldn't have the money if we didn't give it to them. They wouldn't. We sit there and buy the shit they're selling. It's our damn fault. If we stopped buying They're overpriced crap. Do you know how fast everything would fall? If we stopped making money and started bartering and growing our own food and everything else, we wouldn't make enough money to be taxed. And if nobody was paying taxes and nobody was buying anything for corporate America, do you have any idea how fast it would all die? Overnight! We almost did it during the pandemic with the Great Resignation. We almost had ourselves a nice commercial real estate collapse, and I was cheering for it, honestly. But then everybody got all scared and went right back to their corporate masters. We could have had a whole new world, but everybody was too afraid, and nobody knows how to grow their own food. Nobody knows how to live independent of the system, which is where I come in, because I can get mad at you people all day, and believe me, I do. But the truth of the matter is that you are ignorant. You are a product of the system that you were born into, and you're not me. You didn't dedicate your entire life to seeing something different, and we're not crazy enough to be willing to sacrifice husband, children, and the whole 9 yards to be able to do it. That takes a hell of a lot of sacrifice, and I understand why a lot of people aren't willing to do it. But I did. And I did live out in the woods, and I have spent a lot of time thinking about this. And I tell you truly that if you really want to bring this system down, if you truly want to be free, gardening is the most defiant act you can do. Start growing your own food and selling your extra tomatoes. You'll make a little extra money. You'll be surprised that once you let go of all the commercial shit they tell you that you think you have to have, all the narcissistic, I gotta have the car, I have the clothes, blah, blah, blah. Once you let go of that, you become a hell of a lot more free. And if you can walk places, you don't even need a car. Which means you don't need insurance. You don't need any of it. None of the shit they sell you do you actually need. You're just so damn brainwashed you don't know any different. And you can get mad at me for saying that, and I don't really care because it's true. I'm sick of having everything I love destroyed because people can't pull their heads out of the sand and realize that they are, in fact, the problem. You are supporting the corporate state. You are buying from them. You go along with it because it's easier. And you are at fault. Good morning.